Hello, and welcome back to CHGO White Sox podcast. Joining you live from our West Loop studios here in the beautiful city of Chicago, Illinois. My name is Herb Lawrence. You can follow me on X/Twitter at HectorWall23. That is my last name, Lawrence, spelled backwards with 23 for Robin Ventura, the guy to my left. That's Vinnie Duber. He is the CHGO White Sox beat reporter. Follow Vinnie at Vinnie Duber, his name, on X/Twitter. And the guy who's usually to my right is Sean Anderson. Follow him at Sean_W_Anderson. He is off today, but hopefully he'll be joining us back on Tuesday. We are off tomorrow because we have a golf outing with some of our diehards, some of the people who have shown up. It's our first golf outing of the year. We'll have another one that if you missed this one, you could sign up for in August. That second one will be in Cog Hill. So we'll be off tomorrow, be back on Tuesday. But I want to go through the show today. We're going to be talking about, of course, today's disappointing loss. The White Sox got swept for the 14th time this year. Later in the show, we'll be looking for the 16 wins the White Sox need to avoid being the worst team in modern-day baseball. They only have 59 more, and I got the schedule up for the last segment. Whew, friends, it's going to be a rough go because, the trade deadline's in there, so some of the good players will actually be gone. So we'll be going over that, and also we'll be going over the rumor mill and who those players might be, what teams they might be going to. Will Garrett Crochet get traded? Will Luis Robert get traded? A guy who's going to be starting tomorrow, and Eric Fetty, more than likely will be traded. So we'll be going over the rumor mill and see if the White Sox have anything cooking before next Tuesday's trade deadline. But starting off, we want to go over the diehards who joined up this week. It was Nathan, Dave, and Scott. We really appreciate you guys joining. If you who are watching and or listening right now want to become a diehard, go to allchgo.com/join-diehard to become a diehard today. You get 20% off of all merch, 20% off of events like our golf outing we're having tomorrow. You get a free t-shirt when you sign up. And you get access to our CHGO Discord, which we talk about a lot of stuff. There's so many subcategories in here about baseball, football, basketball, and also lifestyle things. Like I think we got wrestling in there. We got some food talk conversation, pet conversation in our Discord. So you get access to that, all becoming a diehard. So go to allchgo.com/join-diehard today to become a diehard. But Vinny, man, let's catch up the people with all the stuff that happened while we were away. On Friday, the White Sox had a long transaction list. Let's go over the people that the White Sox have added and some of the people the White Sox have lost this weekend.
Yeah, Sarah's got a handy graphic she can throw up when she's done working on Cubs stuff for a second. But it was a lot, right? And it started literally like during the All-Star game when there was a report that obviously became official later that Nick Senzel was going to be joining the team. But it is a big change since the last time we did a post-game show, which was a week ago today when the first half ended. And, I mean, you can just take a look at this list right now. Nick Senzel's in to play on the infield. Brooks Baldwin, who was recently promoted to AAA, now promoted to the major leagues and is playing on the infield, was starting there today. Chucky Robinson is now the backup catcher behind Corey Lee. Steven Wilson rejoins the bullpen. Sammy Peralta rejoins the bullpen. And it's because of everything on the right side of your screen, the out list right there. Lenyn Sosa goes down to AAA. Danny Mendick was DFA'd but ends up back at AAA. Martin Maldonado DFA'd. He was released earlier today. And then both Jordan Leisure and Michael Soroka, two pitchers who were pitching out of that bullpen, go on the injured list. Obviously been a very rough return from the minor leagues for Jordan Leisure. Michael Soroka has looked a little bit better since joining the bullpen, but man, the White Sox cannot seem to catch a break whenever he pitches. They're, I believe, 1-21 now. And certainly that's not all his fault. As we saw today, right, in Kansas City, a tremendous pitching effort can be relegated to, a not a losing effort, but a loss because the offense doesn't show up. One run apiece in the 3 games that the White Sox played in Kansas City this weekend. Typically not enough to get it done, but it was a very busy week on that transaction front. Still a little curious as to why some of those moves were made. I think the Martin Maldonado one and the Nick Senzel one jump out to me as being not the most obvious, right? Certainly adding Senzel, who is a veteran guy who has not really ever put it together on a consistent basis, into a team that's supposed to be producing young guys and getting young guys up for the future. interesting move in the middle of the season, right before the trade deadline at that. And then Maldonado, as we talked about briefly, I think that news was broken while we were on the air last week, but we can get into it in a little bit more detail now. It's just, this is a guy who quite obviously was having a bad year, right? Yes. The numbers were terrible at the plate. The defensive numbers were nowhere near where that you would expect to be for a catcher who is terrible at the plate, right? And certainly it was warranted that Martin Maldonado was booted from his numbers, but why now?
Exactly.
Right? This team has the worst record in baseball. They might end up with the worst record in baseball ever. And all the things that Martin Maldonado was lauded for while he was struggling in the statistical areas still apply, right? You're expected to have a young pitching staff get younger as the season goes on. If Eric Fetty, who you brought up, gets traded at the trade deadline, if they move Garrett Crochet at the trade deadline, who's going to replace them? Younger guys from the minor leagues. You're going to see some of these much talked about pitching prospects that we saw join the system over the last calendar year come up to the major leagues. Wouldn't it be beneficial to have Martin Maldonado working with these guys if everything that the White Sox have been praising him for all along it was certainly the case? So it's curious to me. I'm sure that they have their reasons, but to see Maldonado go at this point in time and then to see Senzel join the team at this point in time, a little bit of a head scratcher.
Very much so, because Martin Maldonado, for all the bad he did with the bat, was on a 5-game hitting streak, weirdly enough, and the last 5 games he did hit 3 home runs. So I'm looking at this as the White Sox maybe tried to trade him and didn't have any feelers, and then just letting him go just so he can maybe catch on to some team that is once a veteran catcher like Martin Maldonado. Because, yeah, like you said, the timing just doesn't make sense. He was this the whole year, and now he's actually starting to give you contributions with the bat. And the Nick Senzel thing, I get throwing things against the wall and see if it stick, but Nick Senzel's 29-30. Lenyn Sosa, the guy effectively who got sent down to the minors for him, is 24-25. And so I was thinking that Lenyn was actually playing all right. And what you need to see is from Lenyn what he was doing actually at the major league level. And you're not really going to get anything from Nick Senzel. It's not like he's a spring chicken. It's not like he's had something in the major leagues that you say, oh, yeah, I see that. What we can do is bring that over here, and we can exploit what he did that 1 year with Cincinnati or that half a season with the Washington Nationals. But no, he's been pretty much a disappointment his whole major league career. Second pick overall, I believe, one of the best prospects in the minor leagues when he was Cincinnati Red farmhand. But now it's 29. You know pretty much what Nick Senzel is. And so that was the head scratcher. Yeah, Lenyn Sosa ultimately probably will be a 4A player, but let him tell you on the field by his major league performance that he is going to be a 4A player instead of just going and sending him down to AAA. And luckily, Danny Mendick got DFA'd, and now he's back with the team. He's not neither here nor there, but he's a good guy. I want him to have a job, so he'll be down there in AAA doing his thing. So it is head scratching, but this is a team that is 27-74 now.
Yep.
So.
The only thing I can think of on that Senzel front is, and again, this is not you hate to take a signing so seemingly minor as this and make it out to be a bigger deal, but is this the start of Chris Getz's working ahead to the next trade deadline, working ahead to 2025? It's a team where I think expectations across the board are going to be for them to not be contending next year. Is this a pickup in the middle of the year to say, okay, let's see what he can do over the second half of the season? He'd be ARB eligible at the end of this year, so they would still have the control on him. Can they try to turn him into something over the next calendar year, right? Can they, maybe he has 2 good months playing second base on a regular basis for once Yohan Moncada comes back, and they can say, all right, who needs a second baseman in the offseason, and we'll try to get some more prospects. Is this another get him to trade him kind of situation? It's just odd, because certainly he's not going to impress enough to get traded in the next 9 days or however long there is till the trade deadline. So that's coming right up, and we're going to talk more about it. But I can't imagine Nick Senzel is going to be part of any White Sox deadline deals here in the next week and a half.
Not at all. And this weekend was another loss weekend. They have lost their got swept in their 14th series this year. The White Sox this weekend lost 7-1 on Friday to the Royals, 6-1 yesterday, and today they lose 4-1 by a complete game by Seth Lugo. I mean,
he's having a hell of a year.
That guy is just coming out of nowhere. I mean, last year with the Padres, he was all right. He was decent. But now this year, he's even that much better. He might even be leading the American League in the lowest ERA. So it's a tough go for him. But we got a pitcher, too. For the 5th consecutive time, Drew Thorpe, the rookie, the White Sox, part of the Dylan Cease package, went 6 innings with 2 or fewer runs. He gave up 0 today. 3 or fewer hits. He gave up 3 today. He had 5 strikeouts and 2 walks in 97 pitches. The man is just impressing every time he goes out. Today, his slider looked crisp. Of course, his out pitch is his changeup. And then he just made sweet, sweet love to Salvador Perez all day long. So if you're looking for a silver lining, if you're looking for something that is positive about the White Sox, Drew Thorpe is the top of that list because that man knows how to pitch, and he had one bad outing in his major league career versus the Arizona Diamondbacks. All the rest have been very sparkling.
The consistency has been remarkable, and that is something that I think most folks would expect to not be there from somebody who's getting their first taste of the major leagues, right? You would maybe be able to pick out good performances and good stretches and good moments and maybe some, really nasty weapons and that kind of thing. But hey, the name of the game is stringing it together and doing it on a regular basis. That's maybe the thing that you need to learn how to do. Drew Thorpe's doing that right now, and I think that has been the thing that has been the most impressive is he's showing himself to be reliable and dependable on a regular basis. It's been very impressive. He's looked very good. The numbers obviously speak for themselves. He's got composure out there. You saw in the very first inning today him get in a jam where the first 2 batters reach. I think it was you had the ball in front of Luis that dropped in front of Luis Robert. He was trying to make an acrobatic play there. First 2 runners get on base, and he gets out of it without giving up a run. Mm-hmm. So it's been, and I believe it happened later in the game too, where he's got runners on the corners with 1 out and gets out of that without giving up a run. So very impressive work today, impressive work overall, and I wouldn't even call it silver lining her because that's at least so-and-so's been good and worth watching. Drew Thorpe is potentially going to be a building block and potentially going to be something that fans not only are watching now, but are watching years down the road, and that starts now. So, I mean, it's less of, here's something to be at least, give you a smile in this terrible season. This is a rebuilding year, and this is part of that rebuild. And so if you look at it as this multi-year thing, this is the start of potentially something good. Certainly it's good right in the moment for Drew Thorpe.
Through 32 or 33% of his pitches were changeups today, 26 fastballs. 20% was sliders. And with that slider, he got 11 swings and 7 whiffs. That's a 64% swing percentage on whiffs. And then a 32% called strike plus whiff percentage, which is MLB average, I think Sean says, is 29%. So he's well above that. And he is a rookie with, if you look at him just like, okay, he's got a mid-90s fastball, a changeup, slider. His stuff doesn't, light up the scoreboard like the guy who he was traded for yesterday went out and did it to the Cleveland Guardians, where he's not throwing 98 and a filthy slider. Drew Thorpe just gets it done. He's a major league pitcher in his rookie year and looking the part. I mean, we talk about Seth Lugo. They kind of have the same kind of repertoire with a bunch of pitches, just knowing how to locate it and understanding what they need to do. But after the break, we will go over what has happened as far as the trade rumors and what the White Sox can expect if there's going to be a fast or a slow-moving trade deadline, because we haven't seen anybody trade it yet. There's 9 days until the deadline. So are you panicking? Are you a deadline panicker as a White Sox fan that you haven't seen anybody moved as yet? But first, we want to talk about our friends. Let me see. Let me make sure I got the right thing, Sarah, first. We need to do Prize Picks first. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun and exciting way to get on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more players' stats for a shot of winning up to 100 times your cash. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game by watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Pick lineup in as little as 60 seconds. All you need to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. With all-stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking forward to having some time off now because of the Olympic break, we turn our attention towards the Olympic ladies with Breanna Stewart, Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, etc. They'll be the players you'll be focusing on, and you can win 100 times your cash by watching them ball out in Paris. And if you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has you covered every week. Download the app today and use the code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It is that easy. And our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your summer. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Whether you're in Illinois down south in Champaign or as far north as South Beloit or right here in Wrigleyville, which I just went to the other day. I think I went on Friday during the Cubs game. Awesome time to go because most of the people are at the Cubs game, and so you have a fewer line there at Sunnyside. I just get in there, ordered the stuff online, and picked up my stuff within 10 minutes. Stop by your nearest shop for your expert guidance from their staff or select quality lines like Cresco or FloraCal. Here for the summer is Good News Tea Time Disposable Vape, which I might be going to get today because our golf outing tomorrow, you bring the classic lemonade flavor that's perfect for the golf course, and I know I'll be out there hitting the ball right or left and messing it up. But if I'll be chilling out with some Good News Tea Time Disposable Vape, if I have it out there at, St. Andrews Golf Course out there in West Chicago. I'm picking up some Friday gummies later on today from Good News at Sunnyside. You can too, but heading over to sunnyside.shop and using the code HICHGO at checkout for 35% off of brands like Cresco, Good News. And let me tell you, I try to put it in just, with lower cases. No, all upper cases all together. HICHGO all together, and you'll get the code for yourself at checkout for 35% of brands of Cresco, Good News, and more to elevate your first purchase. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. Now, Vinnie, today, as every Sunday, people open up the USA Today and see what the great Bob Nightingale has to say about the trade rumors and especially what he has to say about the White Sox and where they're going to be going as far as the trade rumors. As I said, there's 9 days until the White Sox and the rest of the MLB have their trade deadline. And he writes in his article today at the bottom of it, the Yankees, for the first time, are willing to include number one prospect Spencer Jones in a trade for White Sox ace Garrett Crochet or Tiger Cy Young candidate Tarek Skubal. The White Sox, however, are holding on to bigger package from the Yankees and others. And then the last blurb he has, the Los Angeles Dodgers have spoken to the White Sox about a blockbuster that will include Crochet, center fielder Luis Robert Jr., and perhaps reliever Michael Kopech. In any of that, do you see Chris Getz or anybody at the White Sox kind of balking, or what do you think their thoughts are 9 days out from the trade deadline as far as they haven't traded anybody and they haven't traded a lot of people in that time?
Well, I think in regards to the specific things that you read there, just, first thoughts on what Bob reported today, Spencer Jones seems to be somebody who the White Sox have really been looking at over the last year or so. And we heard it when Dylan Cease was rumored to be potentially, going to the Yankees in a hypothetical trade, and now we've heard him again as Garrett Crochet is the White Sox pitcher that is getting so much trade talk. Spencer Jones is a top 75 prospect in baseball and somebody who the White Sox have their eye on potentially. And if they are able to pry him away from the Yankees, maybe you do see a Garrett Crochet trade happen. Of course, right under that, Bob wrote, but the White Sox want more. As they should, as we've talked about a bunch. Both Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert Jr. are guys that probably have extraordinarily high asking prices because the White Sox see them as extraordinarily talented players with a lot of control left. Garrett Crochet has been one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. He was just pitched in the All-Star game on Tuesday, has 2 years of control after this. Luis Robert Jr., when healthy, as we saw last year in 2023, is an MVP-type player, has 3 years of control after this, and he's been on a nice hot streak the last month or so since he's kind of gotten back up to full speed after missing so much time earlier in the season. So I still am of the opinion that asking price is going to be so high in the minds of the other many teams out there that I'm not sure the White Sox can find a match, because even if finally Jones is in the equation, now there's still more to be wanted on the White Sox side. But this is how these things go along. Conversations get had over the course of many, many days, many weeks, many months, and eventually you get a deadline put on it, and you have to decide, is this the best deal for us at this time? So I think the Dodgers one is probably the thing that's going to grab the bigger headlines, right? Because you've got 3 players potentially going to the Dodgers. If 2 of them are Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert Jr., the Dodgers better be booking a flight on a jumbo jet and buying every seat, because that's how many prospects it's going to take to get all of those guys. I don't know if something like that is possible. That being said, the Dodgers are a team that has that kind of farm system and could put together that kind of return package. They are a team, as we talked about last week, that seems to be desperate enough after everything that they did in the offseason to ensure that they are in the best possible position to win a World Series this year. Their pitching staff is kind of a shambles right now with all the injuries that they've been going through. And then, of course, adding Luis Robert Jr. to a lineup that has Ohtani, Freeman, and when healthy, Mookie Betts in it. I mean, that's an all-star team. It's literally an all-star team. And so I'm not quite sure that is a possibility, but I'm sure that during their conversations at one point, the Dodgers and the White Sox front office head honchos have been like, well, what if you wanted all 3 of these guys kind of thing? I think the idea that Kopech is included in that list is really the first we've heard about Kopech in trade rumors really at all. And I think we've kind of all assumed that he would be a trade candidate, but I would not be surprised to see him get moved before the deadline just because of all the talent he has, of all the teams that are usually looking for bullpen help at this time of year, and just the ability that he could have to go out there and be a 1-2-3 closer every single night for a contending team. Obviously, he's had his issues this year in that role for the White Sox as he's transitioned from the rotation to the bullpen, but I see him as a guy who I think will definitely get traded before the deadline just because there's got to be so much interest out there in a guy like that. I think the thing that Bob wrote today that really stands out, though, is the idea that nothing has happened yet and much might not happen. There are a lot of middle-of-the-road teams, especially in the National League, where just there's teams in last places in divisions that I'm looking at Sarah make the Cubs graphic, so that's why I'm saying that. But there are teams in last places in divisions who are still in the playoff hunt mathematically, and it's not even ridiculous. There are only a handful of games out of a wild card spot. So while, as Bob wrote today, as baseball waits to see if all these teams are going to be buyers or sellers, it might end up in a situation where not much changes, and you might see a lot of teams kind of stand pat. Certainly the White Sox hope that doesn't happen because they are one of a few teams that are clear sellers and have so much to offer teams that are looking for upgrades of any kind, of any measure at this time of year rather. So I think there will be plenty of players traded off the White Sox still, but it is going to be an interesting week and a half as we see exactly who wants to wade into those waters and start parting with prospects to jockey in what is really a very crowded horse race.
Yeah, that is the nightmare for White Sox and White Sox fans, that what Bob brought up, that so many teams just want to maybe stand pat, like the Cubs. The Cubs, in that article, he said that they're listening to any offer for Cody Bellinger, but Cubs just won today versus Arizona. So, not getting swept versus winning 1 out of 2 versus the Arizona Diamondbacks might sway their opinion. In these 9 days, the Cubs play somebody else and they win those games, win the majority of those games. I guarantee that will sway from what they're thinking right now to what they'll be thinking on next Tuesday's deadline of either standing pat, trading away, or going for the actual division and or wild card that the White Sox or the Cubs can get. So,
and that's just the Cubs. There's a lot of teams that fall into that category as well.
Yeah, there's like 5 teams he noted that are 100% out. They're going to be trading. Of course, the White Sox are part of that. There's only 2 in the National League, and I think that's the Rockies and the Nationals? No, the Rockies and the Marlins are the definite, we're going to be trading, we're gone. But everybody else in the National League, because the National League is so mediocre in the middle, it's just going to be, okay, we're just going to hang 10 or hang pat and just stay right here.
They're going to hang 10? Everybody's going surfing?
Hang 10. We're just going to chill out right here. We're not going to do anything. And he also brought up, like, the White Sox are going to be asking a lot for Garrett Crochet, which they should. And the White Sox are going to be asking a lot for Luis Robert Jr., which they should. And teams might balk at those prices, especially because They're like, where are we at? What do we need to do? But with those two players, having multiple years behind it might drive those teams to actually pull the trigger on the White Sox players. I would just balk at what Bob said as far as the rumor of Crochet, Robert, and Kopech going to the Dodgers as a rumor.
Maybe Ohtani's coming back.
Hey, that would be the only way, as Kevin put up. Like, I don't know if the Dodgers have enough draft capital to get all three of those players. Like,
it would seem that very few teams would, but no. I guess the idea is you've seen those packages really kind of dial down, since Rick Hahn made those trades that jump-started the last rebuild. You've seen those return packages kind of get dialed down a bit. And if we're talking about one top 75 prospect being the headliner, in a potential deal with the Yankees, there are teams out there who might only need to part with two or three of their top 15 guys in order to land talents of this caliber. I'm not saying the White Sox should settle for anything, because I think they're in a unique position where they don't need to trade these guys. Nope. But all it takes is one team to say, okay, here you go. Here's three of our top 7 prospects. Here's 4 of our top 10 prospects. And that might get the job done, because that might be where the market is at right now.
Also, this is a thing that where you're just talking about. We're of the mind that Chris Getz cannot settle, cannot take anything less than he actually feels that is a value and a match for the players that he's trading away. This is why I worry, because Bob's talking about the slow market. Would you see Chris, as a first-time general manager doing his first trade deadline, kind of panic that, hey, there's not enough movement here. I, for my own job and for this team's future, need to get some talent in here for the players who are on my team. Like, I know that the John Brebbias and the Steven Wilsons of the world probably more than likely will not be here. Eric Fetty is very highly coveted, and they're probably not asking for the world for those guys. But you think that Chris Getz and his staff might panic at, there's not enough movement. I need to get talent in this roster so I can move forward for 2025 and hit the ground running, instead of, I'm just going to sit down and hold my cards. And if they don't come to me with the offer that I need, I'll just hold my cards, and then we'll be good with a couple trades instead of the 6 or 7 players that they look to trade.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a panic or a negative outcome due to a lack of experience. And I think we had this conversation back in the winter with Dylan Cease, right? And I think that this exact same explanation applied, which was the White Sox, unfortunately for their fans, right? Because fans don't want to watch rebuilding years over and over again, but they kind of have nothing but time. And it's certainly when it comes to this discussion, right? They are in a rebuilding project that is at the very beginning, that is expected to last multiple years. And the 2 big fish that we're talking about that they have to trade have multiple years of control each after the end of this season. There is nothing right now that says that Chris Getz has to trade Garrett Crochet at this trade deadline, that he has to trade Luis Robert Jr. at this trade deadline. There's no some sort of window that's going to close on the White Sox because those 2 guys, or if those 2 guys are on the team after July 30th. We can just go through all this again in the winter. We can just go through all this again next summer, and the winter and the summer after that, if that right deal doesn't come along. I'm not saying it will take that long. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do think that Chris is in exactly the same position he was in with Dylan Cease in the winter. He's the guy holding the cards. He's the guy holding the resources that these teams want. And Bob's writing today was all about how there's not much to choose from. And so that's not pressure on Chris Getz. That's the other way around. That's pressure on those other teams that are out there looking for help, that might say, wow, now I'm in a tough spot. This might be our window. Our window might be closing. We need to get that player now, or we're going to be in trouble. Chris Getz is in the opposite seat, where he can say, I have this guy, I'm going to have this guy, and also we're not contending for anything in the next year or more. We have no need for expediency in this process. So I don't think anything like you're talking about is something that's going to happen with the White Sox this summer.
And I'm sure, looking at the starting pitcher today in Drew Thorpe, he's like, hey, I did it right. Like, I trade away Dylan Cease, and it's tough to give 2 years away of a top of the rotation pitcher. But Drew Thorpe looks to be the part himself. And then you got Jairo Uriarte, part of a no-hitter yesterday. It was a 7-inning no-hitter, but still part of a no-hitter. And you got Steven Wilson as part of that trade. So, and a younger player, and Samuel Zavala. So I'm sure that he's like, you know what? I held my cards for the Dylan Cease and got what I wanted. Let's still follow that same blueprint. After the break, we'll be talking about the White Sox with only 27 wins right now through 101 games. Need to get going because the record for the most losses in a season is 120, and they're going fast towards it. So if they're going to be trading all these players, can we get 16 wins? And we'll go through the schedule that's remaining to see if they can. But first, Vinny's got to tell us about the folks at Leinenkugel.
What a fantastic weekend of summer weather here in Chicago.
Indubitably.
Oh, it was tremendous. I hope everybody got outside. And I hope everybody got outside and enjoyed what you do when the weather is so fantastic in the summertime. And that's drink a Leinenkugel Summer Shandy. The perfect taste combinations of lemonade, beer, and mashed together and turned into just one delicious, refreshing beverage that you can enjoy doing any summertime activity. Maybe you're down by the lake, you're having a nice picnic. Maybe you're down at the rate having a nice tailgate. What goes better with that? Nothing than a wonderful case of summer shandy. But of course, if you're one of those people who loves the variety, there's so many other flavors of Leinenkugels to try. You can try the Honey Vice. You can try the Lakeside Cherry. When it rolls around, you can try the Sunset Wheat. If you happen to be up in Wisconsin, you can try a Leinie's Original. And of course, our favorite, never going to give you up, Berry Vice. That's the kind of stuff you've got to be looking for at your local liquor store, at your local grocery store, wherever you get your beverages. Flavor life's simple moments with Leinenkugels, the official craft beer of the Chicago White Sox. Go to Leinie.com/CHGO to find delivery options near you. That's LEINIE.com/CHGO, or pick up Leinenkugels pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Leinenkugels, flavor the moment, celebrate responsibly. The Jacob Leinenkugel Brewing Company, Chippewa Falls.
Yes. You even got it from Sarah. That's all good. What's the most valuable thing in the world? To me, it's the loved ones in your life. And the second most valuable thing is time. Managing and worry about body odor used to take up a lot of time for me. I was paranoid about smelling, especially about midday right now. And all I was thinking about is, man, how do I not do this? And now I started bike riding. And so Mando has been a godsend for me. Since I switched to Mando whole body deodorant, I freed up so much time. Like I said, I'm riding my bike much more nowadays. So Mando comes in clutch to battle the odor. And yeah, it's that effective and long-lasting. I actually rode my bike in today. I'm going to ride it back on home after this in a nice 80-degree weather. As Vinny said, the beautiful weather has been perfect for bike riding, and Mando keeps me dry and smelling good. Here's why. Mando doesn't cover up odor after the fact with heavy fragrances like certain other deodorants. It stops odor by the source by attacking the bacteria on your skin from eating the sweat, which is the actual cause of BO. What does that mean? It means that Mando is clinically proven to control odor for up to 72 hours, and that's a long time. So give yourself the precious gift of time and give yourself some Mando whole body deodorant. Special offer, new customers get $5 off Mando's best-selling starter pack with code CHGO at shopmando.com. Mando whole body deodorant is powerful enough for the toughest body odor, but gentle enough to use everywhere, allowing you to put Mando on your family jewels without any worry, because Mando is aluminum-free, baking soda-free, cruelty-free, dye-free, and vegan. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code for you to help you get hooked on their favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter packet with your exclusive order. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack. Use code CHGO at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Now, the White Sox, as Michael Leroy points out, are 27-74. Sox have 59 games remaining to get to 16 wins to not be the worst team in modern-day baseball. If they trade away their best players, as we're thinking they're going to do before the trade deadline next Tuesday, they have some trouble in front of them because the remaining schedule, the records they have for the remaining schedule is 13-49. That's a 209 winning percentage, which is even lower than their current 270 winning percentage. So they have some games coming up before the trade deadline. tomorrow they start a 4-game set versus the Texas Rangers. And Sarah, I don't know if you have the list of the players of the teams. Okay, it's all good. They have a 4-game set versus the Texas Rangers, who are the reigning champions and starting to play really good baseball. Then at home versus Seattle, who they went 1-3 against this year, and then those same Kansas City Royals are finishing up the White Sox series, and they're 1-9. The White Sox are against Kansas City Royals. They'll be playing them next week. Vinny, before the trade deadline, was that 9 games? No, it's 10 games. How many of those games do you think the White Sox can capture? We're trying to get our 16 wins in a realistic fashion. They've gone 2-12 against those teams so far. How many of those 10 games do you think the White Sox can possibly get versus the Texas Rangers, Seattle Mariners, and the Kansas City Royals?
Man, I don't know. I think it's not good to be in the business of predicting whether the White Sox will win or not. Right at this point, I mean, they are the worst team in baseball.
They are.
They have been all year long, and it is they are bad to the point of where they could lose every day, and they have had long stretches this year where they have lost every day. I believe they've lost 6 in a row, 7 in a row at this point.
Yeah, it might be 6
going back to before the All-Star break, too. So, I mean, they were swept by the Pirates, right?
They were.
So, swept by the Pirates is not something you usually like to hear, even though the Pirates are playing a little better this year. But, again, it's you asked me that question, and it's like, how do I answer that question? Oh, well, they're definitely going to take 1 from the Rangers. Are they? Why? The Rangers are much better than them on paper, right? The Royals, they can't score more than 1 run in a game against the Royals. They've scored 12 runs in 10 games against the Royals this season. Unbelievable.
They won one of those games. They scored 2 runs in one of those games, and the Royals only scored 1.
Sure. I mean, you'd like to listen. Garrett Crochet, Eric Fetty, those 2 guys have been fantastic. You'd like to think that when they're on the hill, the White Sox would have a good chance of winning, and they do because those guys have been so good. But that hasn't stopped the White Sox from losing plenty of games in which those 2 guys have pitched this year. So I think the overarching question that you're asking of how are they going to get to 16 over their next, over the remainder of the season is a good one because they've played 101 games and they haven't even won 30 times.
Like, they have their best pitchers going against Texas. That's the only thing that you can look forward to for the White Sox. You have Eric Fetty going tomorrow versus Michael Lorenzen, not Jared Lorenzen like I usually say. The throw boy is not with us anymore. Then you have Garrett Crochet versus John Gray on Tuesday. On Wednesday, you have Chris Flexen versus Nathan Eovaldi. Ooh, that's a tough one. And then on Thursday, for the remainder, for the wrap-up, Jonathan Cannon versus TBD right now. So
TBD's tough.
TBD will strike and shut the White Sox down. As you can know, the White Sox will not have anything for TBD. But this schedule, like, you do have 3 games versus the Oakland Athletics.
6?
6. So you got 3 on the road just after the trade deadline, and then you got to go back out to Oakland at the same time that you go out to Anaheim to play the Anaheim Angels. You'll have their whole series of versus the A's, the 6 games versus the A's, and 6 games versus the Anaheim Angels. Maybe there you can make some headway as far as you just need 16 out of 59. That's it. But for me, as a White Sox fan, I love the team. And as I said before, when I tell my kids, hey, I covered the 15th worst team in baseball, they'll be like, who cares, Dad? But if I say, hey, I watched majority of the worst season in baseball history, they'll be like, hey, that's something to talk about, Dad. And so I'm personally rooting for them to get under 16 wins so they can be the worst team in baseball history. We can get T-shirts printed up. You, as a diehard, can get some T-shirts and go 20% off when we do make these T-shirts, because you're damn right we're going to print those damn T-shirts. I was alive, and I was alive for the White Sox worst season, and all I got is this damn T-shirt type of thing. And so, yeah, they have a lot of games after the trade deadline that are versus teams that are going to be competing. The Twins for 3, Cubs for a 2-game set, which we actually have a takeover on August 9th if you want to become that show. It's August 9th on Friday. There's a fireworks show August 9th versus the Cubs. So we're going to be there. Me, Sean, Vinnie will be working. So they got those things. And if the Cubs are going to be doing like things like they did today, winning a game, they'll be competing. The Houston Astros, who have been playing much better baseball since the last time we've seen them. Detroit Tigers, they got a couple games. They have a lot of games versus the Detroit Tigers. They've gone 1-5 versus them this year. And the only team in the Central the White Sox have actually competed with is the best team in the Central, the Cleveland Guardians. I think they have one more series versus the Cleveland Guardians. They are 5-5 versus those vaunted Guardians so far this year. And I'm just looking at this schedule, all the rest of the teams that they have to play, the Giants, the Mets, the Yankees, the Padres. Like, those are teams that are all going to be competing. As we're talking about the National League pretty much being bunched up, it's going to be very hard when the White Sox trade away the Eric Fetties of the world, the Brebievs of the world, and then now they got to go and battle with, even though he's a young, good player, Brooks Baldwin and Nick Senzel. It's going to be like, man, are they going to get shut out all these games? Or are they going to get swept many more times than the 14 games or the 14 times they've already been swept in series? So I'm looking forward to the White Sox playing some better baseball, but looking forward to them winning fewer than 16 games because I want to be part of the worst team in baseball history. Vinnie, I know you have no rooting interest either way, and I know that you'll be in the booth for some of these games, so you don't want to be seeing some terrible baseball. You want to be entertained when you're up there.
I think that wish sailed at the beginning of the season. It's been a lot of losses that I've covered so far, and I expect more, right? I mean, how could you not? After the way the first 101 have gone, there's 61 left, and there's probably not going to be certainly if you're talking pace, there's not going to be as many wins as we've already seen, right?
Nope.
So the question is, can they avoid that? I got a hair on my face. I'm going to do this. But yeah, are they going to be able to avoid that 120 number? We'll find out, I guess. I mean, I guess to your point, you want to see history, I suppose, right? Or baseball history, rather. You want to see something that you haven't before, but you never, you're not rooting for a team to win or lose, really. So it'll be interesting to follow the rest of the way, that's for sure. I think the thing that really jumps out, though, is not so much the wins and losses and who's going to be here to play those games, right? I mean, we had Pedro Grifol tell my colleagues down in Kansas City over the weekend here that he expects to see Colson Montgomery on this team at some point, unless the front office, surprises and makes a different decision. But I would as well, right? I mean, and that doesn't mean he's going to be here tomorrow or the day after the trade deadline. But Pedro has talked, as we talked last week, about the benefits of bringing these guys up in August and giving them a little bit more run than just what can happen in a short month as a traditional September call-up. But even if Colson Montgomery is a traditional September call-up, that's the top prospect in the organization coming up and playing for the fans this year. And I think that is beneficial right there in terms of this being a long-term project. A guy like Colson Montgomery, maybe you can't get a complete read on what he is as a major leaguer in 1 month, but this is, as we just talked about, this is a long-term project, right? Next year is part of Colson Montgomery's first taste of the major leagues, right? So I don't think you have to necessarily worry about that for a guy who's your top prospect in your organization. If there was somebody else, like we saw with Corey Lee last year, right? And that's why it was a real question whether Corey Lee was going to make the team this year because, first of all, his 1 month last year wasn't very impressive, but also it was just 1 month, and we didn't really know what he was going to be as a major leaguer. And it turns out, while he hasn't hit very well lately, he is much better than he showed last year and in just that small sample size. So I think what this roster is going to continue to evolve to look like over the course of the second half is more important than the win-losses. But at the same time, think about it this way. When this season ends, if they end with 120 or more losses, who are the guys that are going to have to talk about it and answer to it? The guys that are there, the Colson Montgomerys of the world and the pitching prospects that they bring up, because Eric Fetty is going to be playing for another team. Tommy Pham is going to be playing for another team. Martin Maldonado is already off of this team. So that's kind of an interesting wrinkle in that all the interviews and all the sound bites that live forever about what was it like to lose 120 games are going to be guys who are only there for a month or a month and a half.
And that's the thing. I worry that having so much youth on a team that is so bad and having all the veteran leaders pretty much probably being gone because of the trade deadline, who's in that clubhouse, that locker room that has the respect of the players and to show the players that, hey, yeah, we're bad, and yeah, we're marching towards 120 losses, but have pride in your job, have pride in what you do, go out every day and try to do X, Y, and Z, so you know you're playing for the name on the front of the jersey and the back of the jersey instead of just mailing it in and not taking it at bat off, not taking it at pitch off. Who's that guy that's a leader in that clubhouse that will probably be there after the trade deadline?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think a lot of the guys who people have pointed to this year, those new additions who have really kind of helped resurrect the positive energy in that clubhouse, even though the results have been what they've been, are trade candidates. People have talked so much about Tommy Pham's ability to, go out and do your job every day, to be professional about it. Nicky Lopez is a guy who has really kept the vibe up in there. Paul DeYoung is somebody who has been around the block and done it professionally. But you're right. Are those guys going to still be here at past the end of this month? A guy who's a leader in that clubhouse that not a lot of people might think is Gavin Sheets. Okay. That's a guy who's, I can't imagine, is going to get traded. I don't think anybody's talking about him as a trade candidate. Mm-hmm. He might be the guy to even though he hasn't been here that long, relative to a lot of other major leaguers, he might be the guy to kind of shepherd some of those younger guys in, at least at the outset. Martin Maldonado obviously got props for what he did inside the clubhouse, what he did in terms of showing the catchers and the pitchers how to work. He's already gone. And, Eric Fetty and Garrett Crochet have both been, seeming kind of leaders of that pitching staff. They could both be gone. So I could see Sheets being a focal point, but there might not be too many more who are sticking around afterward. I think the good news that you can say from that standpoint, if you're the White Sox, is look at the work we have done in taking what was a very negative clubhouse and turning it into a very positive one, and hopefully that's something that continues even as changes to the roster become more and more frequent.
Hopefully, because the last thing I want out of this team after they do trade all these players away is to have just a listless team that doesn't care about baseball anymore because they're in the dog days. They're not competing for anything and just putting their heads down, going up to the plate and just, going through the motions instead of, hey, I'm still getting paid. I'm still highly paid. And I need to show some pride in what I do. And I don't care what the result is. The effort will be there. The process of me getting ready will be there. So when it's time for the White Sox to compete, they know that they have a person that doesn't just turn it on and off when it's good or when it's bad. It's always on. It's never off. And so they need to just be settled in. And yes, they might not have the talent, but you can always give effort. You can always give your best in what you can do that day. And that might turn into something. You might have something. You see your guy to your right and you see your guy to the left, all giving their effort. And you say, yeah, we don't have the best record. And yeah, we're probably going our way for 120 losses. But you know what? This is the guy I want in the foxhole with me when we are going to be good, because I know that he's trying his hardest right now on a bad team. I know he'll do his damnedest if we're on a great team. So I just wish that goes through. All the lessons that Martin Maldonado taught, all the lessons that Fetty and et cetera taught, go through, and they make sure that those players understand that, yeah, the games suck, but you got to give effort. So, and I'm sure Pedro Grifol is talking about the same thing. The fast stuff still works out, even though we laugh at it. And I hope Pedro understands that, yeah, it might be his last couple months as a White Sox manager, but the job ain't done either. So we'll see. It's going to be exciting to see what the White Sox are going to be doing in the next couple of days. Your prediction, Vinny, when we come here next, 2 days from now on Tuesday, will there be a White Sox traded in that interim from now until then?
I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd say it would happen that quickly. We've seen, when there have been similar slow-moving off seasons, how long it has taken to break that logjam. Now, obviously, the trade deadline, there's a deadline. You have to get everything done by a certain amount of time. I would think that the White Sox would have a lot of players that it would be relatively easy to get deals done with, right? Guys in the bullpen, guys who might be depth pieces on the infield or the outfield, something like that, who you could say, sure, just throw, the return package isn't expected to be more than a low-level prospect or something like that. You would think that kind of deal could happen, but if everybody is sitting there playing chicken with each other, waiting for, as someone in the comments mentioned earlier, a big domino to fall, right? Then maybe the whole league is kind of hung up, as we saw in the offseason. People were waiting for Shohei Ohtani to sign, and teams who had no business waiting for Shohei Ohtani to sign were waiting to do their things. I mean, I'm serious, right? I mean, how many teams were actually in on or having their off seasons dictated by Ohtani? They wanted to go out and get a closer, or they wanted to go out and get a shortstop or something like that, but they had to sit and wait around for Ohtani to get done. Maybe there is something like that happening this trade deadline as well, but I would think that the White Sox would be in a position to trade for example, Tanner Banks or John Brebbia or Steven Wilson or Nicky Lopez or Paul DeYoung without needing a big chess piece to move elsewhere in the sport. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to your question, but
have a great answer.
But I will say this: I wouldn't be surprised if one of those smaller moves is made sooner rather than later, because again, you don't need to wait. Teams don't need to wait. Oh, I'm the New York Yankees. It'd be nice to have a bullpen piece, but I'm trying to get Garrett Crochet. Just trade for the bullpen piece and then go get Garrett Crochet. Of course, I'm not the New York Yankees, and so that's why and that's for very good reason. And, if I was out there trading, fans would be very upset. But listen, I just think that there are deals that can get done, even if they're not the deal.
As Kevin says, hit the like button on your way out. We had, 30 people watching, only 16 people have thumbs up. Sarah, what is that?
Make it make sense.
There it is. I want you to say that's your tagline right there. Make it make sense.
I am going to have to give credit where it's due, and I might have stolen that from CHGO Cubs Cody Delmendo, but he has enough catchphrases as it is, so it's fine.
He's like Arnold on Different Strokes. He has so many catchphrases. But we will be back on Tuesday for postgame for the Texas Rangers versus the Chicago White Sox game. That'll be Garrett Crochet, maybe in his last performance as a starting pitcher for the White Sox. Maybe, question mark. That's Vinnie Duber. He is the CHGO White Sox beat reporter. You can follow him at Vinnie Duber. Check out his latest article on ALLCITY.com. The person you heard before, that was Sarah Fichter. She is our producer. Really appreciate Sarah for all her work all during the season. She had to go through this whole season with us. So positive, too. She was like, the White Sox are going to win today.
And the season's not even over.
I was going to say past tense, present tense.
We're still going. I'm still here.
Stop being so positive about the White Sox, Sarah. I mean, we're going to break you down. And you're going to be in a 120-loss season, so you're like, maybe they're not going to win this game today.
That'll be my favorite show we do. That'll be like...
What, the 121st loss?
It's history.
It is.
Yeah.
And we'll have the Hawk Harrelson history. My name is Herb Lawrence. Actorwall23 on Twitter is the way you follow me. The guy who's usually here is Sean Anderson. He'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll be talking to you live after the White Sox win or lose versus the Texas Rangers. I don't know who they're going to do, but I look forward to seeing all the people out there at St. Andrews Golf Club tomorrow as we're doing our CHGO Scramble, our first CHGO Scramble. And then next month, if you want to be joining us, we have our CHGO Kickoff Classic. You can go to allchgo.com/events and sign up today to be a part of that. Or August 9th, where we have our CHGO takeover at Guaranteed Rate Field versus the Cubs. So for Vinnie Duber and Sarah Fichter, I'm Herb Lawrence. See you later.
We all silly like the mayor.